that you're a good employer to work for and that you're meeting your climate change duties. And then there's some of the accreditations that would be likes of the Select and things like that are mandatory. And then they're just going to explain to you how they're going to evaluate this. So they've got a scoring methodology. Now, this might not mean a huge amount to you now, but what's really important is when it has been evaluated and you've received your feedback, they've got an obligation to score it in the way that they've explained it, that they're going to score it. So when you get your feedback and you get a debrief, what you want from them is, what did you score against each question and what was the rationale behind that? And that should tie in with this methodology. And I guess, you know, if you don't agree with that, that's where you might want to challenge the award decision if it doesn't go in your favour. Because, you know, sometimes we don't get these things right, and it is your right to make those challenges. So I'm sure Aberdeenshire are going to do a fantastic job of evaluating it though, but you never know. And as a supplier, it's really important to scrutinise these things. There's then a little bit of an explanation just of how they're actually going to award the packages. This has probably been explained already, so I won't go into this part in too much detail, but essentially under a certain value, it would be a direct award to suppliers that are on the framework, and over 10,000, it would be a mini competition. So it's like a sort of mini tender process. And also in here, they're explaining what they're going to do with the lot. So they've said that it's not a certain number of suppliers per lot. They're going to decide that when they do the evaluation. And then just a reminder of the key dates at the bottom of that. So that, hopefully, once you've read that document, that gives you a bit of an understanding of, you know, what is it that's required of you to be able to submit a bid in terms of the documents that you need to complete, and then how are they going to evaluate it, and what are the key things that are important to them. And then if we go into Appendix 1, I'll just share my screen again on that. Again, I'm not going to go into this one in a huge amount of detail, but this gives you an explanation of the different lots in terms of the types of work that's required, so those 10 areas, and then also the geographical locations that they're going to cover. So if you only cover Buchan, that I only picked that because I can definitely say that one, and you want to provide electrical services, you're going to be picking lot 5 and then geographical area 2. Essentially, and you can do that. You don't have to bid for all the lots. You can pick and choose what ones suit you and you're able to deliver. So then it gives a little bit of a background to what the requirement is and some examples of the types of upgrades and refurbishments and things that would be happening. And then it just gives a further breakdown of what they mean by those sort of lot headings. And again, this is just repeating some of the things that are in the contract notice, but in terms of the accreditations, it's that Select accreditation that you must have. So back to that question, yeah, I would probably ask a question on that in terms of subcontractors. And again, it's just repeating lots of things about insurance requirements, PVG checks, CDM regulations, all the different things that are important to the council in terms of you delivering that that requirement. Okay, and then the next one I'm going to show you. I'm not going to go in and look at the declaration or anything like that. That's quite self-explanatory. You're just sort of signing that. I'm just going to check what appendix it was for the award questionnaire, Appendix 5. Or will we look at... We'll look at Appendix 2 quickly first. and I'll just share that with you. So Appendix 2 is where you're going to submit your rates. And that bit's probably quite straightforward for you guys. You probably know that inside out, although I would imagine quite time consuming putting it together into a tender. So you've got different rates for, sorry, it's jumping all over the place, Monday to Friday, Saturdays, and then the outside of core hours, and it's different rates for the different trades or areas of expertise. And then if you go down, sorry, I don't know why this Word document's jumping all over the place. Then you've got things like add-on for preliminaries and your overheads and your profits, etc. And if you go right down to the bottom, this is where you're going to select what lots that you're bidding for. So again, as I said, if you were just bidding for bucking and electrical services, you would just select that particular lot. So hopefully that document is fairly self-explanatory. And then I'm going to open up, I think I said it was Appendix 5. Let me just check. The award questionnaire. So that's when you're basically providing your written submission. And it's method statements that they're asking for. And then again, they've given a little bit of an explanation of how they're going to evaluate that and how they're going to treat pass or fail questions. So the method statement, the first one is just confirming that you meet that statement of requirement. It's a yes or no. And if you say no to that, then it's probably not worth progressing any further. Health and safety. They've asked a question around providing details of your health and safety policy. So that's probably quite straightforward. And then they want to know more about how that's going to be reflected in the work that's been undertaken specifically for them as a customer under this framework. So they were looking for you to provide a written response on that. And these are the bits that take probably the most time in terms of compiling your tender submission. The most important thing when you're doing this is answer the question that they're asking of you. The biggest thing that I see that lets companies down is they put their sales pitch in and they forget to actually answer the question. So they might just miss a key element of what's been asked, and they either fail or they score really low, although they're actually very capable of providing what's been asked for. So just making sure that you really think about what are they asking. This one's quite a broad question, to be fair. The next question is about your methodology, including the supply chain management. So they're asking for details of your risk assessment process, and that must clearly identify each operation or sequence of operations, including timing and access requirements. So that there's quite a lot in that. And what I would normally do is sort of make bullet points. What are all the different things that they want you to cover here? And then it goes on further to say if you were to be awarded work by them, how would you approach it? And as part of your response, give details about your supply chain or any subcontracting arrangements. So for me, what I would probably do is, what are the key bullet points that they're asking you to cover here? And I would maybe include them as sort of subheadings to say, there's one about supply chain, there's one about subcontracting, just so that for the buyer, it's really easy for them to look at it and say, has that addressed all the points that we're asking for? And that one's quite big, but it is weighted at 40%, so they're looking for quite a lot there.
Amanda,
And
can I
then,
come in a wee second before you go on?
yeah,
Colin was asking a
absolutely.
question about suppliers offering specialist works. where we need to quote on job by job basis, should we include a sample quotation as an example? Is there a facility to do that?
Do you know, that's maybe something I'm just gonna jump back to the rates thing and just see if there's anything in there. Hourly rates. So there is a bit here that says additional trades not listed which your firm can offer along with details of their hourly rates. Would that maybe be covered under it?
You said it's specialist work and it's a quote on a job by job basis. So I assume from that it's not an hourly rate. It must be based on some other way, a different. Colin, I need a wee bit more information from you, please, and then we'll maybe come back to that question at the end.
Yeah, that would be good to know because I'm thinking like the way you would work out that quote must be based on something, isn't it? So what would that be based on? But
Okay,
I think it would probably come in here, this additional trade stroke operatives. But if it is something that's not as straightforward as this, I would probably suggest asking a question about it using that Q&A function, and then you can get a clear answer from how the council would treat that. That's probably the best way to go about it.
perfect. Thanks, Mandy.
Okay, let me just jump back to that other document. Appendix 5, I keep forgetting what one it is. Okay, and then the next method statement is about how you're going to ensure appropriate communication is in place. So again, it's quite a broad question, to be fair. And then the final weighted one is about community benefits. So it's talking about that the council wants to be a role model within the local area and within the public sector in general. And it's identified sort of key areas where community benefits would be relevant. Um, so again, it is quite wide, and they're really in terms of community benefits. What they're looking for is that you're offering something that benefits the community that they operate in. That's, I guess, over and above what you're delivering as part of the contract. And then, you know, when you have committed to these, then they'll put that in as a sort of contractual obligation. There's actually really good guidance. We can send a link, can't we, Fran, after the session? Yeah, I think we can. The
Sorry, but
Scottish
you
Government.
couldn't see it. Sorry, I put my thumb
What's
up, but
okay?
you can't see me. So yeah,
Oh, I
you
can't
can.
see it, sorry. It's
You're
because
fine.
I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll send a link over. The Scottish Government have got really good guidance on community benefits, so you could have a look at that. And I think it's got bits about, you know, what does good look like, sort of thing, that would probably help you to think about that. And then the next two method statements are pass fail only. The first one is about fair work practices. So they want to make sure that you are treating your employees fairly, that you're paying them a good wage on time. Again, there's really, really good guidance on the Scottish Government's website, and it again goes through that, like what does good look like against each of those bullet points. So I would suggest having a look at that when you're putting together your response. And then I've lost my RAM. The next one, yeah, so they're asking about, are you a living wage employer? That's part of the fair work practices. Or is that something that you would look at doing going forward? And then the final non-weighted question is about the climate change duties, and they want to know what you're doing about that. So that would cover lots of things like waste, energy use in buildings, and you know, all those good things. So they want to know what your current practices are and what you're doing moving forward. Things like your vehicles, waste minimisation, etc. And again, there's some quite good guidance on Scottish Government's website on that. So although these things are pass-fail, they're not just yes and no answers. You do need to be thinking about them and making sure that you're sort of putting quite a detailed response. So you've really got, how many is that? Six questions essentially that you need to provide a written response on. And I would make sure that you plan quite a bit of time to dedicate to putting those responses together. So I think in the training, Fran, what do we say? We say about a day for a sort of 4-page answer, I think, roughly. I know that when I'm working with clients, we usually look at about 2.5 hours to prepare a sort of first draft, then we do a review, then we have maybe an hour for a second draft. So you're talking about at least sort of half a day to a day per written response, really. And when you think about the timeline for submitting this tender, it doesn't seem like that much time, does it? But yeah, this bit is pretty important, particularly because they've weighted quality as 100%. It's definitely something that we need to be putting a lot of effort into.
Perfect. Well, can I ask another wee quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Vicky was asking, is this just for businesses that employ other employees? I'm just self-employed. It's just self-employed.
So in terms of things like fair work practices, that's tricky, isn't it? I think I would ask a question about that again within the Q&A, just to say, if I'm a sole trader, how are you going to evaluate the fair work practices? Because I've seen it treated in slightly different ways depending on the buyer. So they might say, well, because you don't employ anyone, this is not relevant to you. But I've seen other ones where they've said, we still want a response on this. So I would definitely go in on the Q&A and say, I'm a sole trader. Does this apply to me? And what kind of response would you be looking for?
I suppose that way you could be the employee of the business. So does the business treat you fairly? Yes, it does.
Yeah, it is tricky. Even with small companies that do employ a couple of people, sometimes, some of these things are a bit unrealistic, for small businesses. So it is about sort of proportionality as well. But if I was a sole trader, I would go and ask a question about that just to say, this is my position. What do you want me to do? I always think just put it back to them, because if you don't and you just assume, they could score you down. Whereas if you've put it back to them and they've told you what to do, then you're just following their instructions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So you're going to have filled all of this document in, and you've saved that, and you're going to be ready to submit that. Now, I want to go back to PCS. Let me just bear with me because I've lost it. I don't mean I've lost it, I've just lost PCS, but maybe I have lost it altogether, who knows? Okay, I'm going to share. Does that all make sense to people? Is it okay? Do you want to go over anything on that bit in particular?
Well, Bill's got a
Um,
question that came in about method statement 3. Lynn said yes, please, that does make sense. But Bill's question was, for method statement 3, are we expected to provide examples of risk assessment, etc.? Is there enough space in the answer box to provide a lot of information, including supply chain management and subcontracting, as well as risk assessment, etc.? Or is there an option to add extra information elsewhere? A good question.
so they didn't give a word count, so I think you can put as many words in as you want. I don't think they said anything about attachments, but let me just do a research. Um, because what sometimes they'll say is, if you need to if you're putting, some people will say you can't put any extra attachments, you just have to answer it in the box. Other people will say, yes, you can, but then you have to make sure you name it in a certain way. They've not said anything about attachments. So what I would suggest, if you do want to attach something, is that you just clearly reference that in terms of what is the file name of the attachment, so that they can see clearly how that relates to that answer. You're not just sending them like hundreds of different attachments. So I would probably just call it MS3, like method statement 3, and then whatever it is. And then I would refer to that in your answer to say, here's an example at MS3, and tell them what the file name is. They've definitely don't seem to have said anything about not providing attachments, so I think that would be fine. I just want to go back to that question as well, just to see exactly how they worded it. The wording is quite open to interpretation, actually. And again, you could always ask a question about this if you wanted to as well. It just says, please submit a method statement including details of your risk assessment. I don't know if they mean risk assessment approach or process, or I'm not quite sure. That's maybe one where you want to ask for a bit more clarity on exactly what they're wanting. And then it does say it needs to clearly identify each operation or sequence of operations. So to me, that would be if you were allocated a job for electrical works, like what is then your process in terms of that risk assessment and all the different steps you take to set that job up. I think that's what they're looking for. They've not specifically said, give us like live examples, real examples that you've done. So you might want to include them. I would maybe ask for a wee bit more clarity on that one, to be fair, because it is quite open. I don't know if that really answers the question, but I think the actual question they've asked maybe a bit vague, to be fair. Okay, was there any other ones before we move?
No, Vicky was just wondering what website we're in, and I've put it through the chat that we're in Public Contracts Scotland at the moment, PC.
Yeah, we are. And those documents that we've been looking at, they're like the Word versions that have been downloaded from there. So we're just looking at them in Word format at the moment. What you're doing is you've basically exported them into your own system and fill them in from there, and then you just upload them to respond to the tender. Right, I'm going to go back into PCS. As I say, I've lost it a little bit.
We're
Right,
still looking at the screen.
we're back. We're back. We're in PCS. So we've downloaded all the documents, and then we've filled in the ones that we need to fill in. We've made a little checklist so we know that we've got everything that we need. The one that you're going to notice isn't there is the single procurement document, which was one of the ones that was in the checklist, and I'm going to show you where to go to find that. So what we want to do is we want to create a response. So to create a response, we're going to go to the post box in this button here. Oh, it's making me log back in. I hate it does that. It doesn't give you very long before it makes you log back in again. So we'll just wait for that to go back in. Okay, yep, so we're going to go to the post box. And we're going to find the one that we've registered for, and we just click create. And it's got some basic information. And then this is where you can find the SPD response. So with all the other documents, you're downloading them, filling them in, re-uploading them. With this single procurement document, that's been built into the system. So this is a document that is used by all of the public sector in Scotland. It's standard questions. They don't have to include all the questions, but if you're asked the question, it'll always be asked it will always be the same question you're asked, no matter who the buyer is. And what's good about it is it also lets you save your responses so that if you were bidding for another contract in the future, you don't have to do it again. Or it'll pre-populate. I mean, if they've asked, some questions that the other one didn't, obviously you would have to do it again, but it populates certain bits for you. The other thing about the SPD is you're essentially self-certifying that you meet the requirements that is set out in there. So what used to happen was it was a PQQ, it was called pre-qualification questionnaire, and they would ask for like your health and safety policies and your quality policies and all those different things, and you had to provide all those documents. And what contractors said was, well, we're having to do this for like 20 different public sector bodies, and it's just too much. So the reason for the SPD was to try and reduce that administrative burden. So they've built it in now to the system. So you just go into this little button and you generate your SPD response. And it's quite straightforward, actually. It talks you through each stage of the process. It always takes ages for some reason to go into it. But once we're in, it's fine. So once we get in here, it's just going to show us some basic information. We just go next. That's just telling you information about the requirement. It's not anything that you need to fill in. It's then got basic information about your company that's already been populated, and then you just go to next. If this is the first time you've done this, it'll ask you to add representatives. I'm already there because I've done it before, but you just click this little button and then you just create your representative. Again, it's very straightforward. It's just basic information that you will already know about the people that are involved in your company. Why is it not letting me go back? So I'm kind of stuck here. Don't know why it's not letting me go back.
Maybe use the control panel button at the top. Oh, there you go. You've changed.
Right. I'm going to try and go out of that. Right, I don't know what happened there, so let's just pretend that didn't happen. But if you ever are stuck there, then if you just go to the control panel, you'll be able to find it. And then I'm just waiting on it letting me back in. Apologies. As I say, I don't know why, but it seems to be slow to actually get into the SPD response, but once you're in it, it's okay. It's doing something. I think. The little thing's turning. Has anybody got any questions while we're waiting on that?
No, nothing through the chat.
It's like you really want a question when your IT is playing up, don't you? Well, you can all get a wee drink.
So that not letting you click on that minor works.
I've clicked on it and it's the little thing's turning. I'm actually going to go. Let me see. Oh, it's doing something now. Right,
Yeah.
perfect. Right, so this has took me to the next stage. So again, it's really straightforward in terms of it takes you through to the next bit, and it doesn't let you submit if you've not filled it all in. So the first bit is what lots that you're bidding for. So you're going to have filled that in within the pricing schedule, but you're also going to fill it in here. So I'm just going to pretend that I am lot 6. I can't even remember what trade that is, but I can guarantee you that I can't do it anyway, whatever it is. So then you're going to say, these are just some standard questions, or it's information that you're going to know about your organisation. So hopefully they're quite straightforward. So are you a small, medium enterprise, less than 250 employees? I think the majority of organisations that will bid for this will be, not all. So we'll just say yes, and we'll just say we've got 1 employee, and your yearly turnover. This doesn't have any bearing on the actual contract itself or how they're going to judge you. That's more for statistics, where the public sector is interested in how many SMEs are bidding for public contracts and are winning public contracts. Are you a supported business? Are you on an official list? Let's see. All of these are just things that you're going to complete. Reliance, so this is one that will be of interest to some of you if you're using subcontractors. Does the bidder rely on the capacities of other entities to meet the selection criteria? So if the answer is yes to this, then you then need to ask them, or well, actually, sorry, I've skipped ahead. I don't know the difference between reliance and subcontracting. So if you rely on another organisation, I think that would be like parent companies and things like that, to meet the selection criteria. They need to complete the SPD as well. And then if you are using subcontractors, if you say yes to that, then they need to complete the SPD as well. So that's something that's quite important. So if you're using subcontractors, you maybe want to have a look at this quite quickly, because it can take time to get them to fill them in and get them sent back. I don't want to go through every single question on this. I'm hoping it'll let me skip through a little bit. Yep. So exclusion grounds. So we spoke briefly about those. So this is things like, well, we've got conspiracy, blacklisting, grave professional misconduct, and so on. Again, you just need to answer those honestly and openly in terms of if you've been involved in any dodgy dealings. There's certain things in there that are, so some of them, they have to exclude you from the process. So if you've been convicted of terrorism, they're just not going to even take you forward, or child labour or anything like that. Things like payment of taxes, if you've ever been blacklisted, things like if you've ever had an environmental, what's the wording on that? Like a breach of environmental legislation or whatever. Some of those things, what you can say, you can then tell them what you did to make sure that doesn't happen again, and it would be at their discretion. It's discretionary exclusion grounds. But basically, you just need to go through and answer those things honestly. And then the suitability is just if you're registered on a trade register, you would only need to pick that if it was relevant. And then turnover, they've not selected, we spoke about that already. Economic and financial standing, that's the insurance requirements. So you just have to say that you either have in place or you will obtain the insurances that they're asking for, and then it's the different lots. And then technical and professional ability, they've not selected. Quality assurance, they've not selected. And so that's all you're going to have to do in terms of that SPD response. You basically just go through that. Most of it is just about your company, and you just fill that in honestly. Then you need to save it. It's not going to let me save it in the way that we need to save it because I've not filled all the bits in. But when you save it, here it says save only. when you've actually completed it, there should be a little button that says save and lock. That's what you need to click so that it's then submitted, essentially. But I can't do that, but just make sure that that you've done that.
Can I ask a quick question before you leave your
Uh-huh.
SPD, Mandy?
Uh-huh.
Yvonne was asking, can you have 2 or 3 representatives in the SPD?
Yes, you can. Yeah. And that is it in that first bit, you can add as many representatives from your company in that as you want to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to jump back. What you would do if you had saved and locked that, it would take you back into here, but we're just going to go back in through the interest list. If I'm jumping too fast, just let me know. And we're going to go back to the post box and just edit. So once you've filled in that SPD response, and you've saved and locked it, that's you've done that part. You don't need to do, don't need to add that as an extra document. And then when you've finished filling in all the Word documents and the Excel documents, you're literally just finding them. So just find them. You just give it a name and you just add it. So that then appears there. So again, I would be getting my checklist and I would be looking at this, attached documents. Does that match up with the checklist? Have I given them all the documents that they need? And once you've done all that, you just click dispatch and that's it. It's sent to them. They can see that they've got a response. They can't see who it's from until the deadline is passed. So they can't open your submission or anything like that until that 5 p.m. deadline. And then once that passes, they can open that and download your responses. If you were to submit it, say, a couple of days in advance, and then you wanted to make any changes to it, you would just go into, I'll show you how to do that. You would go into that interest list and you would click on that particular framework. I actually think there might be an easier way to do that. Go to the post box. And where it says edit or dispatch, there would be a little button that would say withdraw stroke edit. And that's okay to do that. You can just go in. It doesn't lose anything that you've already done, but you can go in and change anything if you needed to change it at the sort of last minute. So I think what I always do is I always say at least one day before is the actual deadline for me. And then I think, well, if I did then need to change something the next day, at least it's already submitted. And then if for some reason I couldn't change it, I've still put my bid in. But yeah, I think that's probably covered everything. Trying to think if I missed
Another wee
anything.
question for you. Thank
Okay. Yep.
Phil was asking, if our taxes are paid up to date and insurances are all up to date, do we have to provide evidence of this at this time, as this would be difficult to provide some of this? He then goes on to
So
say,
you
sorry,
don't.
Mandy, there's more. He then goes on to say, as there is a box at each question asking you if you have evidence.
Yep.
That's going to be the SPD bit,
So
isn't it?
it is a wee bit confusing because it says, can you provide this electronically? You don't have to provide any of the evidence for anything in the SPD when you're filling it in. So you just say yes or no. If you do have the information electronically, so if you had like a electronic receipt that showed that you've paid the taxes, you could say yes to that, but you don't have to provide it at that time. If you say no to that, that's absolutely fine. They just want to make sure that it's up to date. What they can then do further down the line, if they feel the need to, for their due diligence, they can then ask for the evidence at that point. and that goes for anything within that SPD. So as I said, what they were designing it to do was it to be this sort of self-certification type thing, rather than having to provide hundreds of different documents every single time you're bidding.
Perfect. Bill says that's very helpful. Thank you. So when the question's asking if you paid your taxes, you say yes. But then when it asks if you've got evidence, electronic evidence, you can say no. Then that'll be 2 checklists. That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, most people do say no to the electronic thing actually, so that's not an issue at all.
Perfect. Thank you. No more questions at the moment. I don't think there's any more questions. So if you do have a question you want to ask, please use the live chat. Little speech bubble sitting down round about your clock area. We've still got 10, 15 minutes left, so there's plenty of time.
I can see one question. I couldn't see all the questions that you were asking, Fran, so I don't know if something's happened with the questions. But I can see one, and it says, is there a way to see if the framework is going to be used for jobs over a certain value? We have a lot of small value jobs we currently get from the council. So what they've said there, let me just open up, I think it was Appendix 1. Let me just double check that it was Appendix 1. So the answer is, it is for small value and bigger value jobs. It might have actually been in the ITT. I'm just trying to open that up because it gives a little bit of an explanation. Sorry, it's not letting me open the document. Share this tab instead. Right, can you see that ITT document? I think it was in here. Made it give you a breakdown.
Yes, we can.
I think it must have been in, yeah, it's in here, right? So it says, so basically there's going to be 10 lots, and then they're then split into different geographical areas. So anything, and what they've also said is they've not given a commitment in terms of how many companies would be on each lot. So we don't actually know that at this stage, but let's just say there was 3 on the lot that you were on. What they've said is we're not ranking this framework. So it's not a case of going to the first, it's not necessarily the case of going to the first ranked company. It's essentially just who you know can meet your needs at that time. So they can basically pick from the 3. So under £1,000 jobs would definitely be direct award, and they would pick from who was on that lot. If it's between 1,000 and 10,000, they can either choose to directly award or they can do a mini competition. So there's a bit of they've got a bit of flexibility there on what they do. And then if it's over 10,000, it would be done as a mini competition. So that would mean if there's 3 people on that lot, it would be a sort of mini tender just to those 3 companies. But so it looks like, I don't know what sort of value, I forget the person's name, sorry, that asked the question. I don't know what sort of value you'd be looking at, but if it was under 10k, it could just be direct award. Between 1 and 10, you might have to do a mini competition.
Perfect. On that note, Thomas said, would a mini competition be in the form of a quick quote or similar between members in the framework? So it's not members of the framework, Thomas, it's just members of the lot. And yes,
Yeah,
it would be a quick quote if you're
yeah.
happy with that process.
They've not specifically said that they would use the quick quote sort of tool, but I would assume they will. Most, if not all, the councils will use that. So that would be done through Public Contracts Scotland again, and it would come through just as it would only go to the companies that were awarded onto that lot, and it would just be a quotation request. Normally they would base it just on price, but if it was a more complex job, they might ask for more information as well in addition to that.
Perfect, thank you, says Thomas. Alan was asking, if you select a location just now, can you add another location or area later on?
This one you can, it's a closed framework, so whatever you select will be for the next 2 years, plus that sort of optional 2-year extension. So even at the end of the 2 years, you couldn't add extra lots on. It would only be that the ones you were on would be extended.
I do, thank you. So there was a wee bit of confusion happening around 4B6.
4B6.
Is asking if you'll agree to have a credit check done, and it's a yes or no answer. And I think some suppliers that have started the process are getting a wee bit confused. So we asked Public Contract Scotland to clarify, and it said there's a bit for the supplier to add their answer. They can add either yes or no and then click add, and a free text box will appear, and they can either add I will confirm or I understand, and that will be enough to satisfy the question. So question 4B6 is we note you're going to undertake a credit note. I don't know, do you want to go and look at that question, Mandy, just so that we can be clear? It's about a
Where
credit
is
check.
that, Fran? Is it in the SPD?
Yes, it will be section
Yeah.
4, question 4.
Right, let me have a look at that. The
So
thing is, as well, so I'm assuming that must be a standard question. I don't remember seeing that question before, actually.
no, neither do I. Normally
I
that's
wonder
where
if
you would
just
probably add in the health and safety, so maybe they've added in, it's maybe in the bidder's guidance. Let's go and have a look at it so that we can be sure
yeah,
that we're on the same page.
right, I'm just opening that up. Sorry, this bit. I don't know why. So annoying.
Michael was saying that he's struggling to sign Appendix 4. Did you see anything there suggesting that they're looking for a wet signature, or would it just a typed signature do? Have you noticed anything in the instructions?
Let me just check. Right, so for what is section 4? Is it
Would be six.
selection? 4B. Is that in the 4B6? The authority.
That's it there. The authority will use an independent.
Yeah, sorry, I
Independent.
completely missed that. I'm really sorry. I totally missed that.
It's okay, just that was
Um,
it's causing confusion, so I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention.
yeah. Right, so they're going to use Credit Safe to conduct appropriate financial property checks. And if you've got a very high risk to a moderate risk, then they'll want to get more information from you. So your answer, you've not added any information. I get why it's confusing because it's it's a weirdly worded, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So you would say yes, and then in the free field for typing, you would put I understand or I confirm.
Right.
Check's going to happen. So that's it, just to make you aware, guys, at that.
Okay. Yep. Yep. And then it adds it in. Okay. Yep. So that's what you would need to do. That is quite confusing, isn't it?
Cool.
I think that's just the way they've set up the question. And I actually completely missed that. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
Because
okay. It
I
was a good one.
actually the reason why I missed it is they've not said anything about that in the contract notice. And normally they would have to say in the contract notice what they were going to do in terms of credit ratings and things like that. But they have said it here. So um, what you also would want to do then is get a copy of your credit safe report if you don't already have that. You can get like a free trial with them normally where you can access your report. Just check if you are very high risk or moderate. That might potentially exclude you from the process. Um, just make yourself aware of that. And what I would maybe go back to them if you were in any of those brackets, is to go back and say, what other additional information is it you would be asking of us? And how you're going to decide if you take us forward.
Okay. A couple more wee questions coming in. Well, Michael was saying he was struggling to sign Appendix 4, so we might maybe look at that. Colin
Yeah.
said Appendix 7, Aberdeenshire Council Supplier Incentive Services SIS questionnaire. Can we go through that, please? As a new company, not worked for the council before, it's a bit confusing. So yeah, let's have a look at both of them, Appendix 4 and Appendix 7.
Right, so I'm just looking at they've said that that's the declaration, it's section 3 actually. What one is appendix 4? Let me see. Appendix 4 is, oh yeah, that's the, is that the actual agreement? Yep. Right, they have said in another bit that that an electronic signature is acceptable, but I just want to make sure it doesn't say that in terms of the. I think I might go and ask a question on this because I've registered my interest, so I'll double check. I'll do that, and then everyone will get the reply. I think they'll probably accept an electronic signature, to be honest, but why don't we just clarify that?
Just check, yeah, best always just check. Michael went on to say, apologies, Michael went on to say 4A seems to be a PDF, but a PDF you wouldn't be able to edit. Or is it just for information only? Can you see 4A? Is that an appendix, Michael? I need a wee bit more information.
No, wait, I've actually got it open, and it is a PDF.
So is there nothing to fill in then? Is there nothing to, in which case it would need one?
Descript. That's a bit confusing. Was that on our checklist of things that had to be completed? Let me just look. I don't know if that might just be for information only. Let me just check.
Andrew,
I'll check the list. Sorry.
no, that's fine. While you're doing it, Andrew, your questions come through as number 7, and I'm not sure if that's a question or could you put more information through the chat for me, please? Thank you. Vicky, I'll come to your question next.
Sorry, I've lost the page.
You take your time. Vicky's question said, is the area, i.e. BAMF, etc., the ones we saw on the screen and the only areas that are needing to complete this? So I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, Vicky. If you could give us a bit more information too, that'd be great. Thank you.
I've totally lost that page. Must be in the instructions. Oh, here it's here. So appendix 4 doesn't look like it needs to be completed. So it says completed SPD. I'll just share this actually. Can you see that actually? I think you can maybe see it anyway.
Yes.
Completed SPD, completed award questionnaire, appendix 5. Yeah, but you don't need to complete it. I think that's for information only. Which makes sense because it says the response must not be qualified, so they're assuming that you're going to meet their terms and conditions.
Perfect.
And then I think that contract data thing is something that would be completed once it's been awarded. I think. Maybe I'll ask a question on that anyway, just to double check. And then everyone can get that response. I think that would be a good plan.
So Vicky's initial question was, in the area BAMF, etc., the ones we saw on the screen, the only areas that are needing to complete this Vicky came
Mhm.
back with then, I'm in D-side at Boyne area and just wondering if this isn't applicable to my area. But the problem I'm having just now, Vicky, is I don't know what we're talking about. What is it you think only needs to be completed by the area? If you could tell me that. If it's an SPD, then no, every area needs to complete that. So if you could let me know what it is that you think that maybe Banff need to complete that D-side don't, we'll be able to go right into it and clarify it. Or we'll direct you to the buyer so that you can use a Q&A to get clarity on it. So a wee bit more information, please.
I'm wondering if what she's meaning is that is those areas not in scope at all for the framework? I don't know if I'm.
Oh,
We'll let Vicky. I don't want to just guess,
Vicky
but I'm
thinks
I'm
yes.
wondering if that's what's
Vicky's
meant by
thumb
that.
just, yeah, Vicky's thumb just went up, so I think you were hitting the nail on the head there.
Yeah. So let's go back and have a look at the
Rachel's
areas.
saying the area MAR, M-A-R-R, covers Vicky's location. Ah, okay. So Colin is saying, Appendix 7, Aberdeenshire Council Suppliers Incentive Service SIS questionnaire. So we've had this already, haven't we? Can we go through that, please? As a new company, not worked with the council before, it's a bit confusing. And it's on
Yeah,
format
let's
of
fix
the
that.
response. Right, so what did we go through a second? We went through that. Colin's put this in.
No, we've not looked at.
Oh, not looked together. That's why he's
We
put it through
didn't
again.
look at.
Okay, let's go to 7 then.
So I think there was a question about this, wasn't there? If there was a question about this in the Q&A thing, I seen it the other day. What was the SIS thing?
SIS is Supplier Incentive Service.
It's something to do with suppliers getting paid quicker, isn't it? Let me just see. I must admit, I'm not familiar with it. Let me just have a
Would that
look.
be the 30-day or the 10-day if there's a cash flow issue?
Yeah, there was a question about this in the Q&A. Let's see if we can get a bit more clarity.
Or is it, you get a discount? If you give a discount on the prices, then they give you a quicker payment term.
Why is
Yeah,
it
let's
showing
go into it and read what the question and answer because there's a few things in my head now as to what that might mean.
I thought that. Right, I'm just going to go in. Just give me a wee second.
There's the Q&A, guys, that we've been talking about tonight.
Yeah, there definitely was something asked about this. What was it? What was the acronym for it?
SIS questionnaire, Supplier Incentive Service.
What is SIS? Provides the council with a way to offer contractors the opportunity to have their invoices paid ahead of contractual payment terms to aid their cash flow position. Contractors access the scheme by offering the council a small discount on their invoice at the tender stage. So
Yes.
you're putting a discount. There must be more information about that in the. So that looks like this is an optional thing to participate in. I'm just going to find it. I actually think that this is maybe one we need to refer back to. Here we go. I think we should. I think maybe questions on this might need to go back to the council. To be honest with you, because I probably can't answer them. But it's talking about. There is actually a link to it. So you don't have to participate in it. It seems like it's an incentive where you're going to get paid quicker if you do participate in it, but you have to give them a percentage discount to be eligible for it. So you're essentially sort of, I guess you're paying to get your invoices paid quicker, if that makes
It's
sense.
pretty standard. Yeah, it's pretty standard through all government contracts if you can. And of course, through volume and what is it, economy of scale, the more work you're getting, the cheaper it will be for you. So if you feel you're in that position and you can offer a discount, then there is the incentive for doing that is
Yeah.
that they'll pay you quicker. You'll get faster payment terms than the regular for small businesses is fast anyway. It's 30 days, a standard, which you don't get if you're private sector. If you're working for a private sector business, you wouldn't get 30-day terms. Be lucky if you get 60-day terms. But if there's a cash flow problem, then there's an option there for 10 days. So it's only if you can offer a discount, then the incentive for offering a discount is that you'll get preferred payment terms. So I hope that makes sense.
There is a link actually from the ITT to a website that gives a wee bit more information about it, but I would probably direct any questions on that back to the buyer if you're not sure about it. But let's have a wee look at the appendix though, because I'm sure we could figure out what would need to be provided there. So we just need to confirm if this is only to be completed if you want to participate. So you're just going to confirm that you've understood the guidance. You acknowledge that the early payment rebate will be included in the price tender evaluation, and then you're just saying, are you already a member? What percentage rebate have you signed up to? And will the same rate be applied to this tender? So if you're not already involved in it, you're just going to be saying no to those things, even if you do want to participate. And it's just giving you different options. So I guess that's a commercial thing that you need to decide if that is something that would be of benefit to provide that discount if they pay early.
Pay quicker. So hopefully that helped, Colin.
Sorry, I really don't actually know too much about that, so I don't want to get too much out of my own area of expertise, but maybe that's one to pick up with the buyer if you're a wee bit unsure about
I
it.
have seen it in a lot of bigger contracts, so yeah, I'm aware of it. It's probably the value of that contract that allows it to be included.
Yeah,
That
I
helps,
see as
Colin.
well there is a website that it links you out to, and you can actually request a call. Here's the website here. It's linked from the ITT document, but you can actually request a call back from an advisor. So maybe that's the right way to do it in terms of getting somebody to actually talk you through the scheme and how it operates.
That's ideal, Mandy. Thank you
Is that
for doing that.
okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Andrew just went into a wee bit more detail. It offers faster payment for suppliers. Andrew's not a lover of it. He thinks it devalues the work. Scott said, "Can you send a link for the video so I can watch again, please?" Absolutely. You'll get an email tomorrow from SDP, Scott, and it'll be asking for your feedback, because your feedback's really, really important to us. If you have any suggestions how we can make this type of training a wee bit more user friendly, then please share that with us. We welcome your suggestions. But importantly, within that feedback email is where you will get the link to the recording of today. I'm just about to stop the recording actually any second now, because I think we're coming to the end of the questions. Although I will get Mandy to just check your box, Mandy, in case anything's coming directly to you. Because you did have a
No, I
question
don't
there that I
think
couldn't
so.
see.
There was just one that I think it just came directly to me actually, but I
Yeah.
think we're okay.
I think everything else is okay. So if you've got a question that you've not had answered, or if you're thinking about a question you want to ask, now would be the perfect time to do that while we've got Mandy live in the line and still in the portal. So we can go back in and have a look at whatever it is that you need clarity on. I don't think I'm seeing anything else. So if there was a question that's not been answered, please pop it back through the live chat again. Thank you. We'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. But likewise, we've run over time, and apologies for that. Thank you for staying with us. If you're happy with everything you've heard and you don't have any more questions for our expert, please pop that through the live chat. Just let us know that you're happy, and then you'll be free to go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Kerry says many thanks for your help. Andrew said thank you to both. Michael said thanks a lot. Perfect. Okay, so I don't actually think that there is going to be any more questions now. I think
Has
provided
somebody got a hand? Oh, it's thumbs up. I thought someone was putting their hands up, but it's thumbs up.
thumbs up.
So we're good. I think we're okay.
We're good. Oh, and I'm seeing me clapping hands too. Oh, that's good. Excellent. So thank you all for staying with us, and I'm sure all of you are going to join me in thanking Mandy for a brilliant session. That was great, Mandy, and you just took the complete fear factor out of it. It was just all so simple and seamless. I know we jumped about a wee bit, but that there was a lot of documents and a lot of stuff to cover. So I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure
The
that
biggest fear for me is when the IT doesn't work, so it wasn't too bad till tonight.
mine's is jittery because I still don't have your camera. I can't see you. So I
Oh,
don't know what on earth's
I'm
going on
still
there.
here, so
Yeah, you're still here. Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, everyone.
Thanks, guys. We'll speak to you soon
Thanks.
and good luck with your tender. Bye bye.
Bye.